What could you say? We won. By a lot again.
Ever since I was a kid, March Madness has been my favorite sporting event of the year. It has everything you could hope for in a perfect story. Underdogs, stakes, sadness, twists and turns, and sheer joy. But the most beautiful thing about the NCAA tournament is how finite it really is. There's almost never a next year for these teams, especially the non-blue bloods. Whether you're watching this video just after the national championship ended or years from now, my hope is that you would be able to remember the 2024 NCAA tournament in its entirety. From the magical run of Jack Golke and the Oakland Grizzlies, to the unsuspected brilliance of the NC State Wolfpack, the improbable comeback story of Tyon Grant Foster, the historic individual greatness of Zach Edey, and the generational dominance of the UConn Huskies, here is the 2024 NCAA tournament in review. Enjoy. This video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't heard of it, it's an app that allows you to pick higher or lower on your favorite players from your favorite sports. They're running a new customer special right now. Scottie Scheffler needs just one stroke starting tomorrow at the Masters. If you're watching this video later on, don't worry. They almost always have a new customer special that you can pair with code HARDWOOD for 100% deposit match up to $100. Shout out to Underdog. Let's get back to the video. One more thing. I just launched the Hardwood Discord. I would love it if you would join. I'm trying to continue building community as we build this channel. We do watch parties for games and we'll continue to do it throughout the NBA playoffs. The link to join is in the description. We'll see you over there. Game 1, Mississippi State versus Michigan State. This was a battle between two defensive teams, with Michigan State getting the best of the Bulldogs, winning 69-51. Senior guard Tyson Walker had 19 on 7 for 12 from the field, and Michigan State was hitting their threes at a pretty impressive rate, going 10 for 23, when on the season they only averaged 6 a game. Star freshman point guard for Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard, struggled in this game, having 15 points on 6 for 18 from the field, but I'm honestly not too surprised. This is just how Tom Izzo teams perform in March. Game number 2, Duquesne versus BYU. BYU did not score for the first 5 minutes of this game, with Duquesne leading 38-30 at the half. The Dukes would hit a 3 and push that lead to 14 with 16:48 to go in the half, but BYU would come surging back, led by Jackson Robinson, who finished with 25, tying the game at 60 with 1:47 left. In the end, Duquesne would hold on, pulling off the 11-6 upset. BYU was actually the 17th overall seed in the bracket, which is good for the number 1 5 seed. But because they don't play on Sundays, the committee had to push them to a 6, and it ended up becoming their demise. Day Grant led Duquesne with 19 points. He also has one of the weirdest free throw stances I've seen, but you can't argue with it, as he is an absurd 94% free throw shooter. And lastly, LeBron's high school coach is the head coach for Duquesne, with Drew Joyce, his high school teammate, being an assistant. Our third game of the day was a 3-14 matchup between Akron and Creighton. Akron kept it competitive for the first half, but Creighton's offense was too much for them in the second, led by their three-headed monster in Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Creighton shot an absurd 56.5% from the field and 58.8% from 3. Our first 2-15 matchup of the tournament, Arizona versus Long Beach State, smelled trouble for the Wildcats early on, but as most 2 seeds do, Arizona would figure it out, outscoring Long Beach State 44-30 in the second half and winning by 20. North Carolina versus Wagner, 16-1. To be honest, there's not much to say here either. Wagner kept it somewhat close in the first half, being down by 12 before losing 90-62. Illinois versus Moorhead. Moorhead led a majority of this first half as well, being down by 1, and were even leading 45-43 with 16 to go in the second half before Illinois went on a 16-3 run and broke open the game. Terrence Shannon would finish with 26 for Illinois. Riley Minix and Jordan Lathan would combine for 50 for Moorhead, but unfortunately they just didn't have enough scoring around them, losing 85-69. Our second 6-11 matchup, and ironically enough, our second upset of the day, Oregon versus South Carolina. The Ducks were a bid stealer in this tournament. They were not supposed to make the field, and then they went and won the Pac-12 tournament. They defeated South Carolina in this one 87-73 off an absurd 53 second half points. Jermaine Couisnard for Oregon would have 40 points in this one against his former team. There's something about these 6-11 matchups. It feels like more often than not, the 11 seed is winning these games. So I just checked quickly on StatHead. 11 seeds are 6-6, so 500 versus 6 seeds since 2021. And if we add in the 2 wins of Duquesne, an 11 seed, and Oregon, that makes 11 seeds 8-6. So above 500, that is pretty crazy when you think about it. This performance from Couisnard put him in elite company, being only the 3rd player in NCAA tournament history to have a 40-point game as a double-digit seed. The other 2 were Stephen Curry in 2008 and Wally Szczerbiak in 1999. This Oregon team reminds me of another Pac-12 team just 3 years ago who made an Elite 8 run as a 12 seed after winning the Pac-12 tournament and stealing a bid, the Oregon State Beavers. Our 8th game of the day took place between 7 seed Dayton and 10 seed Nevada. Even though they were the lower seed, Nevada was the betting favorite in this matchup. And with 7 minutes to go in the second half, that looked like a smart line. Nevada was up 56-39 over Dayton. The Flyers would then go on a 17-0 run, tying the game at 56 with 2:45 to go. After trading baskets back and forth, Nate Santos would hit 2 free throws for Dayton, and Keenan Blackshear's 3 would airball as time expired, completing the comeback for the Flyers. First round draft prospect Deron Holmes would lead the way for Dayton with 18 and 9, giving us probably the most shocking game of the day up until this point. Game 9 was a 7-10 matchup between Texas and Colorado State. I'll be honest, this game was pretty boring. Colorado State had only 11 points at halftime, and only 100 points were scored total in this game. But I will say, if you didn't know, Max Asmus is the leading scorer for Texas. He led Oral Roberts in that 2021 Sweet 16 run as a 15 seed 3 years ago. So who knows, maybe he has another special run in him. Game 10 was by far the best game of the day. 3 seed Kentucky versus 14 seed Oakland. Oakland led a majority of the first half, in large part due to Jack Golke, a 6th-year Division II transfer from Hillsdale College, who had an absurd 7 threes in the first half. In the second half, this game was back and forth, and although Kentucky got an awful game out of their 2 star freshman guards in Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd, senior guard Antonio Reeves did everything he could to keep Kentucky from getting upset, scoring 27 points on 11 for 18 from the field. The last minute of this game was pretty wild. 2 free throws from DK Cole would put Oakland up 4 before Rob Dillingham would hit a pretty impressive 3, but the 14th seeded Cinderellas would answer DK Cole again with another 3, which would end up being enough. Oakland wins this game 80-76. It was an absolutely legendary and historical performance from Jack Golke, who finished the game with 32 points, going 10 for 20 from 3, almost tying the tournament record of 11 by Jeff Fryer of Loyola Marymount. Kentucky had the 5th offense in the country according to adjusted rating via KenPom, but it was the same story as it's been all season. They can't stop anyone on defense. And like I said, Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham both played pretty awful. And although right now they're both currently projected to be top 5 picks in the NBA draft, it's so funny how poetic March Madness is that a guy like Jack Golke can outshine those 2 players in a game like this. Only 8% of brackets on ESPN Tournament Challenge picked Oakland. And lastly, before we move on, here is a super cool quote that I think Jack had from his post-game presser.
Appreciate it. We're not a Cinderella.
I know they have draft picks, and I know I'm not going to the NBA, but I know on any given night I can compete with those type of guys, and our team can compete with those type of guys, and that's why I say we're not a Cinderella.
Game 11 of the day, Gonzaga versus McNeese State. McNeese was one of the most popular mid-major upset picks of the first round. They were 30-3 on this season, and people didn't really like Gonzaga going into this tournament, but Mark Few and Gonzaga did what they always do, dominating wire to wire this McNeese State team. I really don't even know what else to say. Gonzaga shot at 51.7% from the field and 47.6% from 3, while McNeese State shot 33% from the field. It feels like almost every year we underestimate the coaches that always win in March, at least in the early rounds. And so I was curious, has Mark Few at Gonzaga ever been upset in the first round? I used StatHead to check. It's happened twice for him in his 25 seasons. And once was against Stephen Curry and 10-seeded Davidson. The other was in 2002. Probably not a good idea to bet against Gonzaga, especially in the first round, to get upset. Game 12, Iowa State versus South Dakota State. While they only won by 17, this game was seriously never in doubt for the Cyclones. They have the second best defense in the country, according to KenPom. They locked up and destroyed Houston in the Big 12 title game just a couple weeks ago. This Cyclone team is legit, and as long as their offense doesn't completely break down on them, I think they're going to make it pretty deep into this tournament. Tennessee versus St. Peter's, another nothing burger of a game. Tennessee took care of business. Dalton Knecht, the Northern Colorado transfer, looks like one of the best players in this tournament. Him and running man Jonas Adu will look to make history for Tennessee, as they have never made a Final Four and have made one lone Elite Eight in 2010. Game 14 of the day and our third 6-11 matchup of the tournament took place between Texas Tech and NC State. Texas Tech shot horribly in this game, with their star Pop Isaacs going 3 for 16 from the field and 1 for 10 from 3. The Red Raiders overall shot only 38% from the field. The Wolfpack would take this one 82-67. They are one of the most interesting stories in the tournament right now. Another team, just like Oregon, who stole a bid by winning their conference tournament, and now they are headed to the round of 32. This also makes the 11 seeds 3-0 so far in March Madness, and if you refer to my record earlier, since 2021, 11 seeds are now 9-6 versus 6 seeds. Our final two games of the day both came down to the wire, starting with Kansas versus Samford. Samford was down by 20 in the second half, led by their star Achor. Samford would crawl all the way back into this one, down 88-84 with the ball with 50 seconds to go. Kansas then scores with 30 seconds left before Samford's Jaden Campbell hits a 3, making it a 1-point game. And this is where the most controversial moment of the day takes place. Nicholas Timberlake thinks he has a breakaway dunk, but Samford's AJ Staten McCray makes one of the best chase down blocks I have ever seen, and the officials call a foul. Watch this replay. He does not touch him with his body. He does not touch him with his hand. He gets all ball, and Samford was truly robbed of an opportunity to win this game. Unfortunately, they just don't get a good look at the end and fall 93-89, failing to become the 33rd 13 seed to win in March Madness. Finally, the last game of day one, a 7-10 matchup between Washington State and Drake. Tucker DeVries of Drake is one of the best mid-major players in the entire country. He's the coach's son, and if you remember correctly, last year they matched up with Miami in the first round, held the lead the entire second half, and were up 55-47 with 5:40 to go. The Bulldogs would proceed to score 1 point the rest of the game and fall to Miami 63-56. I was really hoping this year would be different because I'm from Iowa. Drake is in Des Moines, Iowa, if you didn't know. So I've always been fond of them. And again, around the 6-minute mark, Drake was leading 54-46. They had an 8-point lead, but they would give it up once again on an Isaiah Watts 3-point jumper with 1:53 to go, losing 66-61.
You know, these endings are tough. You know, you don't prepare for walking in those locker rooms and you know how you're going to handle it because you think you're going to win the game.
Meltdown, really. Can't really put it into words, really. It's just, I'll take responsibility for it. It's on me.
I grew up here, 22 years, chose to go to Birmingham, Alabama, and trust in Coach Bucky and these guys. And, you know, we had a historic season for Samford. You know, the whole stadium at the end, you know, they were behind us, and I had a lot of family and friends, Utah family, Utah State family, Logan High, Olympus, everybody supporting. And I just wish we could have got it done, and you know, one more time in front of all these people.
So there you have it, day one of March Madness, recapped and explained. Obviously, the highlight of the day was Oakland defeating Kentucky. All three 11 seeds winning was pretty cool as well, especially given their stories. All three of them were bid stealers. But aside from those games, this was not a very crazy March Madness day. I hope we have a more chaotic day tomorrow. Game one took place between an 8-9 matchup, Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. The first half was absolutely brutal, with teams scoring a combined 39 points. But in the second half, these two teams would get it going. Northwestern led by as much as 9 with 6:43 to go in this game, but FAU would fight back and actually take the lead 58-56 on a John L. Davis jumper with a minute left. Brooks Barnheiser from Northwestern would tie it up with 9 seconds to go, and then John L. Davis just forgets that there's only a couple seconds left on the clock and throws up a shot with 1 second left, sending us to overtime. Overtime was all Northwestern, and more specifically, all Ryan Langberg. The senior outscores FAU himself 12-7 in overtime. The Wildcats win 77-65. FAU goes from Final Four to first round exit. Dusty May is probably gone, whether it's Louisville, Michigan, wherever. Boo Buie played remarkably, and he's also having his best season of his career. This is just the third time in program history that Northwestern has made an NCAA tournament, last season and 2017 being the other two. In all three, they've won their first round game, but never made the Sweet 16. I'm excited to see on Sunday if the fifth-year senior can make program history. Game two between Baylor and Colgate. There's not much to say here. This was a blowout from start to finish for the Baylor Bears. 4 of their starters had double digits, led by Jalen Bridges with 23. They shot 58% from the field, went 16 for 30 from 3, which is good for 53%. Game 3 of the day, San Diego State, the 5 seed versus UAB, the 12. Fresh off a Final Four run last season as a 5 seed as well, the Aztecs found themselves down to UAB 58-55. with 6 minutes to go in the game, but would squeak this one out 69-65. Just one field goal was made in the final 4 minutes of this game, with the rest of the 13 points scored from the free throw line. Star forward Jaden Ledee for the Aztecs put them on his back, scoring 32 points and 8 rebounds, willing his team to the second round. Game 4, 2-seed Marquette versus Western Kentucky. Star point guard Tyler Kolek would return after a month absence in this game, and Marquette would look to avenge their second round loss last season as a 2-seed as well. But in order to do so, they had to get past Western Kentucky, the 15 seed first. The Hilltoppers would lead at halftime 43-36, but the second half was all the Golden Eagles, outscoring Western Kentucky 51-26. Marquette has not been back to the Final Four since Dwayne Wade led them there in 2003. Cam Jones and Tyler Kolek will be looking to change that. Game 5, the number 1 overall seed UConn versus 16 seed Stetson. It's no news to any of us. The Huskies are unbelievable. They are on a quest to repeat as champions, being the first to do so since 2006-2007 Florida. And this first game was a bloodbath, 91-52, outscoring Stetson 52-19 in the first half. Our final 6-11 game of the tournament, the first 3 were yesterday. And like we mentioned in yesterday's video, all 11 seeds won, making them 9-6 since 2021 versus 6 seeds. New Mexico was by far the most popular 11 seed picked to advance, with a lot of people having them in the Sweet 16 and even the Elite 8. So naturally, Clemson handled them the entire game, winning 77-56, because that's just how March works. Game 7, Auburn, a 4 seed versus Yale, a 13. Yale would get down 10 points, 68-58 with 7:35 to go, but would fight back, tying it at 70 with 2:38 to go. John Poulakidis was balling for Yale, finishing with 28 points on an absurd 10 for 15 from the field and 6 for 9 from 3, including this massive 3-pointer, putting Yale up 73-72 with 2 minutes to go. But the last minute of this game was pure chaos. Yale would go up 78-74 with 13 seconds left. Auburn would get an and one layup, but miss the free throw. Janai Broome would get the offensive board. Auburn gets fouled and misses both free throws. Janai Broome gets the offensive rebound again. Yale with the massive block. Auburn scrambles and hoists up a 3 as time expires, and the 13-seeded Yale Bulldogs pull off the 13-4 upset 78-76, making them just the 33rd 13 seed to win a game in the NCAA tournament, and just the second win in Yale's program history, the last one coming in 2016. The Bulldogs will look to make a Sweet 16 for the first time in program history on Sunday, matching up with San Diego State. Game 8, Florida versus Colorado. This game was utterly absurd. If you like offense, this was the game to watch yesterday. Florida was down 94-84 with 4 minutes to go before leading scorer Walter Clayton Jr. would score 16 straight points, tying the game for the Gators with 11 seconds left, 100-100. And then naturally, KJ Simpson for Colorado hits a game winner with 2 seconds to go. This was one of my favorite games of the day. Colorado shot an absolutely absurd 63% from the field. Clayton Jr. would finish with 33 points on 10 for 17. And when I saw both teams hit triple digits, I had to check StatHead and see the last time that had happened, which was in 2005, and only 9 times besides this game in NCAA tournament history have 2 teams both scored over 100 points. This was one of my favorite games of the day. Nebraska versus Texas A&M, game 9 of the day and tipping off our nightcap. The Huskers in the tournament for the first time since 2014 and before that 1998. But this one was all Texas A&M, outscoring Nebraska 58-44 in the first half, winning 98-83, led by Wade Taylor, who finished with 25 on 8 of 14. Game 10 of the day, Duke versus Vermont. Vermont hung around for the first 2/3 of this game or so, but it was Duke all after that, winning 64-47. Leading scorer Kyle Filipowski took 1 shot and only had 3 points, but Duke didn't really need him as they held Vermont to 38.5% from the field and 25% from 3. Game 11, Purdue versus 16 seed Grambling. Fresh off an embarrassing loss to Fairleigh Dickinson last year, becoming just the second 1 seed to ever fall to a 16. Purdue would take care of business, winning 78-50. The presumed National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, would dominate in this one with 30 and 21. Could this be a redemption tour for the Boilermakers? In a similar fashion, when 2018 Virginia became the first 1 seed to lose to a 16, they would turn around in 2019 and win a national championship. I'm curious to see if Purdue can accomplish the same thing, but only time will tell. Game 12, 4-seed Alabama versus 13 College of Charleston. Similar to Colorado and Florida, this was a shootout, but Bama kinda just dominated. Even though they gave up 96 points, they finished scoring 109, which thanks to StatHead is the most points scored in an NCAA tournament game since 2008 1-seed North Carolina put up 113 versus 16 seed Mount St. Mary's. Alabama has the 3rd best offense in the country according to adjusted offensive efficiency on KenPom, but just the 117th defense. They live and die by the 3, taking the 4th most 3-point attempts in the country, making 37% of those. They did shoot 60% from the field and 56% from 3 in this game. Game 13, Houston versus Longwood. Not much to say. Houston absolutely dominated. They have the best defense in the nation, holding Longwood to 44 points and just 16 in the first half. They'll match up against Texas A&M in the second round in a game that I believe is going to be highly competitive. Game 14, another one of my favorites of the day, 5-seed Wisconsin versus 12-seed James Madison. And the Dukes complete the upset in this game. And although they didn't even shoot it well from the field, shooting 41% as a team and 29% from 3, they didn't really need to, as they held Wisconsin to 37% from the field as well. Co-stars Terrence Edwards Jr. and TJ Bickerstaff led the way with 14 and 12, but I think the thing that was most impressive about this game for James Madison is that they led wire to wire, and they just looked like they were in control the entire game. Our second to last game of the day, Utah State versus TCU. 58% of ESPN brackets were taking TCU in this game. And the betting markets had TCU moneyline at -180, but Utah State kind of handled them, especially in the second half, winning 88-72, giving the Aggies their first win of the NCAA tournament since 2001. And finally, our final game of day 2 of March Madness, 5 seed St. Mary's versus 12 seed Grand Canyon. St. Mary's was a pretty popular Sweet 16 and even a dark horse Elite 8 or Final 4 pick in brackets. But Grand Canyon was quite frankly just the better team in this game, especially in the second half. They held the Gales to 28% from 3, 39% overall. Tyon Grant Foster was fantastic for GCU, scoring 22 and 7. And if you know this guy's story, I'm so happy for him. He's a 6th-year senior who started off in JUCO, played 8 minutes a game for Kansas in 2021, transferred to DePaul in 2022, and in the first game of the season, he collapsed in the locker room at halftime. I won't go into too many more details, but basically he had issues with his heart that didn't allow him to play, that would keep him out of basketball for 16 months. And finally, around this time last season, doctors cleared him to play and he signed with Grand Canyon. He's been nothing short of sensational, averaging 19.8 points per game, 6 rebounds, and leading the Antelopes to their first NCAA tournament win in school history. I don't know about you guys, but I am cheering hard for GCU in the round of 32. How can you not cheer for a team and a player with a story like this?
Also sad that I can pray for Coach Hoiberg anymore, pray with my teammate anymore. That's the most sad thing right now.
That concludes day 2 and the first round of the NCAA tournament. We had 8 double-digit seeds advance this year in March Madness, compared to just 3 last season, and it's the most double-digit seeds to advance to the round of 32 since 2016 when 10 advanced. One took place between 7 seed Dayton and 2 seed Arizona. The Flyers got down big early in this one, 40-23 with 2:44 to go, but would go on a 10-0 run to finish the half down 7. And in the second half, Dayton would get it as close as 4 numerous times, but would go without a field goal from the 10-minute mark to the 6:37 mark in the second half. Arizona wins this one 78-68. Arizona's defense was just too much for Dayton in this game as they shot 40% from the field and 29% from 3, which just isn't going to cut it from a team that is 24th in the nation in offense and 4th in the nation in 3-point percentage. Future first-round NBA draft pick Deron Holmes did all he can to keep his Flyers in this one, finishing with 23 and 11, but Dayton just had 2 points off the bench. I'm getting more and more intrigued by this Arizona team. According to KenPom, they're ranked 9th in offense and defensive efficiency in the nation. They'll be matching up with the winner of Baylor-Clemson today for a shot at the Elite 8, but the Final Four is what's really on the Wildcats' mind. They haven't made one since 2001 with Gilbert Arenas and Richard Jefferson. Game 2 on day 3 took place between 4 seed Kansas and 5 seed Gonzaga, 2 teams that are considered to be having down years compared to recent success. The first half of this matchup was super competitive, with the Jayhawks having a 1-point lead at halftime, but then Gonzaga goes on a 15-0 run to begin the second half, and from there it was pretty much a blowout. Gonzaga would win 89-68. The Jayhawks just looked tired and completely beat down in that second half, and that's due to a lot of things. For one, Hunter Dickinson is beat up, still playing. They're missing arguably their best player, if not their second best player, in Kevin McCullough Jr., who was shut down with a knee injury. And then that Samford game took a lot out of them 2 nights ago. And let's be honest, there's a chance they just aren't even in this game if we don't get the worst foul call of all time. Bottom line is, Kansas had 0 depth and it caught up to them in the second half. Gonzaga, on the other hand, shot 60% from the field. 5th-year senior Anton Watson led the way with 21 points. And yes, this is the same Watson that was a very important role player on those Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren teams. Wyoming transfer and leading scorer Graham Ike finished with 15 and Nolan Hickman had 17. But the biggest story here is that Mark Few, Gonzaga's coach, has now made a Sweet 16 in 9 straight years. I feel pretty foolish buying into the McNeese State hype, upsetting them in the first round. I know Gonzaga has had a down year in comparison, but you just cannot bet against Mark Few coach teams, at least early on in the tournament. Gonzaga now awaits the winner of Purdue and Utah State, which are playing later today. Game 3, number 1 seed North Carolina versus 9 seed Michigan State. I was nervous for the Tar Heels early in this one. They got down big to start, which you never want to do against Tom Izzo in the NCAA tournament. But after that 26-14 deficit, UNC would go on a 20-1 run and take the lead, heading into the half up 9. Sparty kept it close until about the 10-minute mark when UNC turned it on and would end up winning 85-69 in this one. I know Michigan State is a 9 seed. I know they are not having the type of year they usually have, but as a 10 seed last year, they upset Marquette in the round of 32. And anytime you have senior guard play led by a Tom Izzo team, I don't care if you're a 1 seed, you have to feel good about beating them and advancing. Tyson Walker did all he could in this one, scoring 24 points on 9 of 16 from the field. And on the UNC side, RJ Davis led the way with 20. Armando Bacot had 18 and Harrison Ingram finished with 17. UNC awaits the winner of Alabama Grand Canyon today. And if both Arizona and UNC can make it to the Elite Eight, they would face each other in a revenge game. If you don't know, back in 2022 when UNC made the title game as an 8 seed, RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, and Caleb Love were all huge parts of that team. All 3 of them returned for 2023, and they started out the number 1 seed in the preseason, but they wouldn't make the tournament. Caleb Love then got out of Chapel Hill and transferred to Arizona, and the rumors are there's bad blood between RJ Davis and Caleb Love. I have no idea if that's true or not. However, it could be a really cool storyline for an Elite Eight matchup. Game number 4, number 2 seed Iowa State versus 7 seed Washington State. The Cyclones do not have the best offense, but they have the nation's 2nd best defense according to Ken Pom. And early on, it looked like their offense may be leading them to an early exit. It took them a whole 5 minutes to score their first point, and they didn't reach 10 until the 7-minute mark in the first half. However, their defense kept them in it. They would bounce back and tie it at half 27-27. And in the second half, their offense would step up a bit and their defense would continue to clamp Washington State, finishing the game 67-56 and sending the Cyclones to the Sweet 16 for the 7th time in school history. Iowa State has never in fact made a Final Four, unless you include 1944 when there were just 8 teams in the tournament. So if ISU wants to make their first legitimate Final Four appearance in school history, they have a lot of work cut out for them. Matter of fact, Ken Pomeroy put out this brilliant tweet I have to share with you. Iowa State was unranked in the preseason top 25. No team that has been that and has finished as a top 2 seed in the tournament has ever made a Final Four. If they're able to do so, they won't just be making school history, but tournament history. Head coach TJ Otzelberger deserves a ton of credit. He inherited a 2-22 team in 2021 that went winless in the Big 12, turned it around to a Sweet 16 appearance that next season in 2022, made the tournament in 2023, and here we are in 2024 being a 2nd seed making the Sweet 16. Game 5 was one of the best games on this slate. 11 seed NC State versus 14 seed Oakland, a bid stealer who won 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament, forcing their way into the field, versus a darling mid-major that stole the hearts of America on Thursday when they defeated Kentucky. This game was back and forth the entire way and would actually end up going to overtime. The Grizzlies would throw the ball away at the end of regulation in what I thought was an incredible opportunity to win the game right then and there. But in OT, it just seemed like Oakland was tired. The size and the physicality of NC State had kind of gotten to them, and they would fall 79-73. Oakland shot really rough in this game, 36% from the field. Their star, Trey Townsend, did everything he could to keep his team in this game, putting up 30 and 13. And the hero of the first round of the tournament, Jack Golke, would finish with 22 points on 6 for 17 from 3. But they just didn't really get much from the rest of their team. If Oakland could have pulled this win off, they would have been just the 3rd 14th seed of all time to make a Sweet 16. As unfortunate as it is that we didn't see that happen, at the same time, NC State is an incredible story in their own. DJ Burns would finish with 24 and 11 on 9 for 12 from the field in this game. Simply put, he was just too big for Oakland. This marks the first time the Wolfpack have been to the Sweet 16 since 2015. 2014, and the last 4 times they've been there in 89, 2005, 2012, and 2015, they failed to make an Elite Eight. They'll meet the winner of Marquette and Colorado for a chance to beat that 38-year streak. Game 6, Tennessee, a 2 seed versus Texas, a 7. Both teams struggled from the field shooting, but Tennessee seemed to be in complete control of this game up until the final minutes. Max Abmas would cut the lead to 1 with 30 seconds left, and then Jonas Aidoo would make both free throws, extending it back to 3, before Max Abmas missed a potentially game-tying 3 with 13 seconds to go, and 2 seed Tennessee would move on 62-58. I told you guys this game was ugly. Texas shot 36%, Tennessee shot 33%, but I'm not too worried about the Volunteers. Their defense is elite and their offense is good. It just seemed to be one of those grinded out games, and they did that. Tennessee is now 1 step closer to making their 2nd Elite Eight, their first since 2010, and more importantly, their first ever Final Four in program history. Game 7, 3 seed Illinois versus 11 seed Duquesne. I'm not going to cover this game too much because Illinois dominated it from start to finish. It was by far the least competitive game on the day. Terrence Shannon finished with 30 on 10 for 14 from the field. Marcus Damask had 22 and 7 on 9 for 16, and I have to say, in round 1, my apologies, he had the 10th ever triple-double in NCAA tournament history, the first one since Ja Morant. This win was huge for the Illini as they broke a 5-game streak dating back to 2006 of losing in the round of 32. The matchup with Iowa State for a chance at the Elite Eight on the line. The nation's best offense in Illinois versus the nation's 2nd best defense in Iowa State. A team that wants to run versus a team that wants to slow down. I'm super excited for this matchup as they are complete polar opposites in their style of play and their strengths. And finally, Game 8, the last one of the day, and in my opinion, the best game on this slate. Yes, even better than NC State and Oakland. Number 3 Creighton versus number 11 Oregon. Oregon has a very similar story to NC State. They forced themselves into March Madness by winning the Pac-12 tourney, and Folly Dante and Jermaine Couisnard have been sensational during this run, and they were again in this game. Dante finished with 28 and 20. Couisnard had 32 and 8, and this game was back and forth the entire game. It was 36-34 at half, obviously tied at the end of regulation. The Ducks led 62-58 with the ball with 34 seconds left when Couisnard missed a jumper and Baylor Shireman would make 2 free throws. Dante would miss the front end of a 1-and-1, and Baylor Shireman would make a jumper, tying the game and sending it into overtime. In the first overtime, Jermaine Couisnard would hit an incredible 3 with 18 seconds left, tying the game, before Trey Alexander missed a jumper as time expired. But the second overtime was all Creighton, outscoring Oregon 15-2. You could tell Oregon had just completely lost all of their legs. Couisnard was exhausted. Dante was exhausted. Senior guard Stephen Ashworth came up huge for Creighton with 21 points. This felt like a game to me that Oregon gave away at the end of regulation, being up 4 with ball with 30 seconds left. You should almost never lose. But props to Creighton. This is their 3rd time in 4 years making the Sweet 16. They made their first ever Elite Eight last year. We'll see if they can make their first ever Final Four this year.
The whole world has a great deal of respect. Great deal of respect. Can't make me any happier than to have that.
I wish I could made that last free throw. That could be the game, but that's on me. There's a lot of things I could do to help my team, but I didn't.
I know the loss hurts. Can you just describe?
I really don't know. We just didn't do everything we're supposed to do, to be honest. But I don't know what to even say. I mean, this one is just hurt.
Just a joy in this day and age to walk into the office every day and know that I'm lucky I get to go in that gym and be with this group of kids. And that's probably what hurts the most right now, is I know that that's over. And man, I'm gonna miss that.
Journey, I've been trying to tell everyone to appreciate every single moment, every single, time we're together, because these are the best years of your life, and I think everyone's tried to make the most of that, and I'm sure everyone will have a great relationship after this season and for the rest of our lives.
I wanted to go to Dallas really bad. All the guys wanted to go to Dallas really bad, but I told them in the locker room, the thing I wanted the most really was to see everyone at practice on Monday. That's the thing I'm going to miss the most, is just seeing my guys every single day.
That concludes our day 3 recap. If you enjoyed this video, I'm recording this early Sunday morning. I'm excited for the slate we have today. All I'm asking for is Tyon Grant Foster to lead GCU to a Sweet 16, and fine, maybe a James Madison Sweet 16 appearance as well. I feel extremely confident saying that Texas A&M is going to give Houston a hell game. Colorado is going to be a problem for Marquette. I'll post the day 4 recap video tomorrow. By the end of this video, our Sweet 16 will be set. Day 3 gave us the very rare occurrence of every single favorite winning, and with 4 double-digit seeds playing today, I'm hoping we'll get some chaos. Game 1, 2-seed Marquette versus 10-seed Colorado. Star point guard Tyler Kolek looks completely healthy after being out for 6 games to finish the season, and with him healthy, the Golden Eagles are 24-6 on the season. I told you guys yesterday that Colorado is going to make this tough on Marquette, and they did just that. They have 3 absolute dogs in KJ Simpson and Tristan Da Silva, who are late first-round projected picks, and freshman Cody Williams, who is going as high as the top 5 in mock drafts. He's also the younger brother of Oklahoma City's Jalen Williams. Marquette would get out to an 11-point lead in the first half, shooting an insane 68% from the field on 19 for 28 shooting, but the Buffaloes came roaring back in the second half, taking the lead with 14:42 to go. Marquette's leading scorer Cam Jones would pick up his 4th foul with 7:46 to go in the game. A nice take by JP Simpson would make it a 1-point game with 2:38 to go. After a couple empty possessions for each team, Tyler Kolek would hit a clutch jumper with 54 seconds left, making it 79-76, but Cody Williams would only go 1 for 2 from the line with 20 seconds to go, and David Joplin would make both of his free throws, sending the Golden Eagles to the Sweet 16, 81-77, avenging their second round exit from last season, punching their ticket to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2013. Simply put, Tyler Kolek is the best point guard in the country. He played all 40 minutes in this game, went 10 for 14 from the field, 21 points, 11 assists, and 5 boards, making Kolek just the 3rd player to have 2 games of 10+ points, 10+ assists, and 5+ rebounds in the NCAA tournament since 1984. Colorado fails to reach the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1969, but I'm super excited to see Cody Williams in the NBA this upcoming season, and even someone like Tristan Da Silva, who I think is going to carve out a role. Game 2, number 1 seed Purdue versus 8 seed Utah State. The Aggies won their first tournament game since 2001 and are seeking their first Sweet 16 appearance since 1970. They would battle early in this one, being down only 1 point with 6 minutes to go in the half, but the Boilermakers would go on a 14-0 run, finishing the half up 16, and from then it just wasn't a close game. Purdue dominates 106-67. Purdue's margin of victory of 39 points in the round of 32, according to StatHead, is the largest since the year 2000. Rewatching film from this game, Edey just demands so much attention, especially when he gets touches in the paint, and Utah State just didn't have anybody to put on him. Their best player, Great Osabor, was on him, who's 6'8", and as you can see, Edey is making him work every single possession, and he's just so undersized. Zach Edey would finish with 23 and 14 in just 27 minutes, going 8 for 11 from the field. Role player Trey Kaufman-Wren was huge in this game as well, scoring 18 points. Edey also became just the first player since Lou Alcindor in 1968 to have 50+ points, 35+ rebounds, and 65% from the field in their first 2 NCAA tournament games. And the Boilermakers continue their revenge tour. If you didn't watch the day 2 recap video, I mentioned that Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, a 16 seed last season. Back in 2018, when Virginia became the first 1 seed to lose to a 16, they'd follow up the next season by winning the national championship. Could the Boilermakers somehow accomplish the same feat? Purdue is back in the Sweet 16. In 2022, they would get upset by St. Peter's, a 15 seed, and in 2019 they would advance to the Elite Eight on the back of Carson Edwards' legendary tourney run. But don't worry, we'll preview their Sweet 16 matchup in my Sweet 16 video coming out Tuesday. Game 3 of the day, 4 seed Duke versus 12 seed James Madison. Terrence Edwards, James Madison's best player and leading scorer, would pick up 2 fouls, in the first couple minutes of this game, but I'm not sure it would have mattered that much. This one was all Duke, especially freshman guard Jared McCain, who finished with 30 points on 10 for 15 from the field, 8 for 11 from 3. He scored his 30th point with 11 minutes or so to go in the second half, and from there it was a blowout. This was James Madison's first tournament appearance since 2013 and their first time winning a game in the round of 64 since 1983, but they failed to make the Sweet 16 for the first time in school history. Jared McCain's 30 points was just the second time a Duke freshman has scored 30 or more in the NCAA tournament, with Zion Williamson doing so against UCF in 2019. McCain also did not commit a turnover, making him the first freshman in the NCAA tournament since it expanded in 1985 to score 30 points and commit 0 turnovers. Game 4, 3-seed Baylor versus 6-seed Clemson. If you would have told me that Clemson was going to be in the Sweet 16 before the tournament started, I would have laughed at you and potentially bankrupt myself betting against them. Not only did they defeat popular Sweet 16 pick New Mexico in the first round, but they led wire to wire in their defeat of the Baylor Bears 72-64. Baylor was down by as much as 16 with 6 minutes to go before they would make their run, cutting it to just a 2-point game with 2:18 left on the clock. Star freshman wing Jacoby Walter, who was projected to go very high in the NBA draft, went to the line down to 66-64 with 37 seconds left before missing both free throws. The Clemson Tigers advanced to their first Sweet 16 since 2018 and their 4th ever in program history. This also marks the 3rd straight season that Baylor has been upset in the round of 32 as a 3-seed or better. I understand they had that incredible run in 2021, winning a national title. March Madness is chaos. These things happen with programs over a 2 to 3 year span, but they got to get back to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 next year. They've just had far too much talent to continually be doing this over the past 3 years. We'll dive more into Clemson in the Sweet 16 video coming the middle of this week. Game 5, 12-seed Grand Canyon versus 4-seed Alabama. I made it quite known that Tyon Grant Foster is one of my favorite players in this tournament, especially with his backstory I explained in day 2, but this was the ugliest game of the tournament by far. Both teams were out of control, fouling a ton, and neither team could hit a shot. GCU shot 32% from the field and Alabama shot 37%. I was impressed by how GCU handled Alabama on defense. They really did stifle them. Alabama is almost never scoring 72 points in a game. They're one of the best offenses in the country. But Grand Canyon got to the free throw line 37 times and only made 23 of them. Down 55-50 with 7 minutes to go, GCU would go on an 8-0 run powered by a Tyon Grant Foster and 1 layup, and then a Grant Foster jumper, giving them a 3-point lead, but Alabama would punch right back, going on a 7-0 run themselves, extending the lead to 4. But it was the way they went on a 7-0 run that I have a huge problem with for Grand Canyon. Mark Sears misses a 3, Alabama offensive rebound, GCU fouls. Alabama only makes 1 of 2, gets an offensive board, misses a 3, gets an offensive board, there's a foul on GCU, they make 1 free throw, offensive rebound, and 1 layup. That's a 5-point possession right there, late in a game that just absolutely cannot happen. Alabama wins this one 72-61. I have to give credit to the Crimson Tide. I was pretty critical of them in my previous video, and while I think the reasons I stated were valid, they've made their 2nd straight Sweet 16, and they proved they can win games even when their shots aren't falling. Mark Sears was massive for them, finishing with 26, and they would finish with an insane 20 offensive rebounds. Grand Canyon also could get absolutely nothing going in their half-court offense. It was pretty ridiculous, actually. Their execution was awful. They were pretty much only scoring in transition or Grant Foster in isolation. And as much as I wanted to believe in GCU, it never felt like they were going to win this game. They did win their first ever NCAA tournament game in program history this season, so they have a lot to build on for the future. Game 6, number 1 overall seed UConn versus Northwestern. Not much to say here. UConn absolutely dominated, especially in that first half, outscoring the Wildcats 40-18. And although Northwestern would outscore the Huskies in the second half 40-35, it's just way too little too late against the best team in the tournament. UConn shot 54% from the field field, but only 13% from 3, going 3 for 22, which is super uncharacteristic of them. Boo Buie struggled in this game, going 2 for 15 from the field with only 9 points, finishing a storied career for Northwestern, bringing them to their only 2 NCAA tournaments in school history. Also, I want to say I want zero part of playing UConn in this tournament. They are terrifying. And Dan Hurley had this to say about the committee. He's pissed off.
I think that the committee has tried to make this as difficult as they can on us. We know what they had in mind, and it just it's more fuel on the fire.
Game 7 of the day was my favorite, but it didn't get that interesting until the end. 9 seed Texas A&M versus number 1 seed Houston. These schools are only about 90 minutes away from each other. Houston has the best defense in the country, but I predicted in my last video Texas A&M was going to make it tough on them. The Aggie star Wade Taylor would have a very rough shooting night, going 5 for 26 in the game, but down 81-71 with 1:48 left on the clock, Buzz Williams elected to play the foul game, and it worked to a T. Houston would miss 2 of their first 4 free throws and turn the ball over, putting it to a 5-point game with 1:12 left on the clock. LJ Cryer would then foul Wade Taylor on a 3, fouling him out. Emmanuel Sharp would miss 1 of 2 free throws, and Texas A&M would get a layup, cutting it to 3 points. At this point, they could play straight up, just needing to get 1 stop, and they would do so after Jamal Shed gets blocked on this jumper. There's a crazy sequence to end the game with multiple offensive rebounds, and with a second left, Anderson Garcia would hit a 3 as time expired, sending this game to overtime. He's only attempted 23s on the year, making his 9th. It was an incredible moment. Houston guard Emmanuel Sharp would have a career-high 30 points in this game on the back of 7 threes, but he would foul out to begin overtime, joining LJ Cryer on the bench and leaving Jamal Shed to will his team to a victory in overtime. Shed would do just that with this incredible layup to go up 4 with 30 seconds left. He would play every minute of the game until fouling out himself with 18 seconds left. Wade Taylor makes both free throws, cutting it to 3, and then Texas A&M fouls walk-on Ryan Elvin, who was put in the game because Houston had 4 starters fouled out. Elvin has played a combined 173 minutes in his 4-year Houston career, and somehow he finds himself in the game going to the free throw line with everything to lose. Naturally, he misses the first shot long, but recovers and makes the second one, sealing this victory for Houston in an absolutely gutsy performance from both teams. According to ESPN, this is just the 5th time and the 2nd in the modern era that 4 players have fouled out and a team has won a game in NCAA tournament history. A&M would shoot 45 free throws in this game, which is the most in an NCAA tournament game since 2022, and has happened just 7 times since 2000, yet they would only make 29 of those free throws. They also had 26 offensive rebounds in this game, the most since 2018 when Michigan State also had 26. And as much credit as I give to Texas A&M for lengthening this game and going from being down 11 with 90 seconds to go to overtime, you also have to give a ton of credit to the Houston Cougars for keeping their composure and finishing this game in overtime. So many teams would have folded. All of the momentum was against them. They had 4 starters fouled out. Just an incredibly gutsy performance and probably my favorite game on this slate today. Game 8, the final game of the second round, 13 seed Yale versus 5 seed San Diego State. This game was disgusting. Yale got absolutely destroyed. Credit SDSU. They have the 9th best defense in the NCAA according to Ken Pom, and they held Yale to 21 points in the first half. Jaden Ledee was massive for them again, scoring 26 points, having 9 boards on 9 for 12 from the field. But yeah, I don't have much to say about this game besides that.
I've loved coaching this team as much as any team I've ever coached, and I'm just really sad that there's no more games with this group. The GOAT, in my opinion, for our program, he is. For what he's done, not only with the records, not only, but the legacy as a winner, but just the credibility that he's helped give our program.
It's bigger than today's game. It's just more so that I won't be able to ever put the uniform on again. But I can say that I'm proud of, what we've been able to do this season and last season.
Teammates so much, love the coaches so much, so I never looked ahead. I always just wanted to be in the moment because it's just really hard. We just had big plans, and I know we could have did them.
What I love about him and what makes him so special is The question was asked. A lot of one and dones. They don't unpack their bags, and I mean, it's really hard for him after the game, and you love it. You love that he cares.
Concludes our second round of March Madness Day 4 recap. 12 of the top 16 seeds advanced to the Sweet 16 this year, giving us our 7th lowest seed total in NCAA tournament history. But boy, oh boy, are there some fun matchups in the Sweet 16 that I will be covering in my Sweet 16 video coming out in a day or two. The Sweet 16 officially wrapped up last night, and with 8 games spread out evenly between Thursday and Friday, it did not disappoint. Let's start with the first 4 games on the Thursday slate, beginning with one of my favorites, 2-seed Arizona versus 6-seed Clemson. If this is your first time on the channel, this won't mean much to you, but if you watched our Sweet 16 preview video, you know that I pretty boldly picked Clemson to win this game, and that's exactly what the Tigers did, defeating Arizona 77-72 and punching their ticket to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2018. It was pretty much all Clemson in this first half. They were up 39-31 at the end of the half, and I'll be honest, Clemson dictated this game. Arizona early on turned the ball over like 4 times. They weren't taking very good shots. They weren't even utilizing Ballo, who in my opinion was their biggest mismatch. And on the defensive end, they let Clemson pretty much get whatever they wanted early on in the half-court offense. But that's the beautiful thing about this Clemson team. They are not going to let you control what they do. On defense, Chase Hunter absolutely clamped Caleb Love. He only had 13 points on 5 for 18 from the field, including 0 for 9 from 3, which is by far the worst 3-point shooting night of the season for him. He did go 1 for 7 against Oregon in the Pac-12 tourney and 0 for 6 versus USC at the end of the regular season. Caleb took some bad shots like he kind of always does, but I'm still giving a ton of credit to Chase Hunter. He's been incredible on the defensive end and potentially even better on the offensive end in this tournament, finishing the game with a team high 18 points, 7 boards, and 5 assists. Arizona actually did a really good job on Girard in this game. And one thing I love about Joe Girard is he was an absolute dog in high school. He's the New York State all-time points leader, passing Lance Stevenson as a junior and finishing with 4,763 all-time points, which according to the National Federation of High Schools is 10th all-time. I'm so sorry for this tangent, guys. Skip ahead if you don't care. This is crazy. He averaged 50 points per game as a junior and 48.6 as a senior. All right, sorry for the tangent. Back to this game. Joe Girard actually only scored 4 points in this game. The Wildcats did great on him, and he did miss 2 straight free throws, fouled on a 3, which is crazy because Joe is leading the nation in free throw percentage, and he had only missed 6 on the year out of 120. PJ Hall stayed out of foul trouble in the beginning of this game, but in the second half to start it, he had 3 straight fouls. And it was at this point that I thought Clemson was in trouble. Arizona takes the lead 46-45 with 14:33 to go in the game. But huge props to Clemson's role players. Jack Clark and RJ Godfrey hit a 3 and 2 free throws, putting them back up 4. And after that, Clemson never gave up the lead again the rest of the game, which means Clemson has held the lead in all but 2 moments in this tournament: the opening bucket of the opening round versus New Mexico, and these 20 seconds early in the second half versus Arizona. Clemson's head coach, Brad Brownell, had what I thought was a brilliant defensive adjustment. Arizona was on a roll on offense, cutting through that Clemson man-to-man and getting to the rim frequently. So Brownell went to their 3-2 zone and challenged Arizona to shoot threes on a night where they weren't making them. I think this was a missed opportunity from Arizona. Late in the game, Umar Ballo had 2 easy layups when Clemson tried to front him, and I just thought they should have been doing that the whole game. Ballo was the biggest mismatch on the court, and especially when you don't shoot it well from 3, you have to be getting it inside to your 7-foot, 260 big man. Ballo finished 7 for 10 from the field, but only 1 for 7 from the free throw line, 15 points and 15 rebounds. Jaden Bradley was fantastic for Arizona, a sophomore guard off the bench. He only averaged 7 points on the season, but in this game, he scored 18 points, including 8 for 9 from the free throw line. Pella Larson and Kylan Boswell were bad in this game too. Pella went 2 for 9 from the field, including 1 for 6 from 3, and Kylan went 1 for 6 from the field, including 1 for 5 from 3. The Wildcats as a team went 5 for 28 from the 3-point line. And while I give massive props to Clemson's defense, they have a lot of long, athletic wings. Some of this is just straight up 3-point shooting luck. Clemson opponents are shooting 14 for 75 from 3 in this tournament, which is good for 18.7%. And that's not me dissing them, but sometimes you do get luck on your side with 3-point shooting that helps you make an Elite Eight run. Clemson star big man PJ Hall had his best game of the tournament, scoring 17 points, 8 boards, but it was far from a dominant game. He went 7 for 15 from the field, which is fine. We'll talk about the Elite Eight later, but I am expecting a big game from PJ Hall in the Elite Eight. You'll find out who they are facing later in this video. Game 2, number 1 overall seed UConn versus 5 seed San Diego State. We mentioned this in our Sweet 16 preview. This is a rematch of the national title game from last year. I gotta give my props to the Aztecs. They fought early in this one, and after a Micah Parrish jumper with 2:08 left in the first half, they were only down 4, 35-31 to UConn. Unfortunately for SDSU, their offense failed them in the second half, scoring just 21 points in the second half. I really feel for Jaden Ledee. I feel like he was one of the best players in this tournament. This team's identity is defense, and he just didn't have enough offensive help around him. Connecticut plays a pretty tight rotation. Only 2 bench players played significant minutes. Star point guard Tristan Newton had 17, 7, and 4 in this one, but it was Stephon Castle, freshman and top 10 projected NBA draft pick, who had 16 points, 11 boards on 5 for 8 from the field and 6 for 8 from the free throw line. I've said it before, I'll say it again. UConn has 5 lethal options in their starting lineup. UConn wins this one 82-52 in a 30-point blowout, making Connecticut 34-3 on the season, tying their most ever wins in school history. The last time UConn lost in the NCAA tournament was in 2022 in the round of 64. They got upset by 12 seed New Mexico State, but since then they have won every single game by more than 13 points. That's 9 straight wins of 13 points or more, which is an NCAA record. Don't worry, Husky fans, I've been brief with them in this tournament. There's just not a lot to say. They've been dominant, but if they make the Final Four, and honestly, probably when they make the Final Four, I plan on doing a deep dive on the journey to the Final Four for each 4 of these teams. So hopefully we can dive deeper into them then. One more thing about the Huskies, I was reading this AP article on them and they had a great tidbit. UConn is the first defending champion to make an Elite Eight since Florida won back-to-back titles in 2007. Game 3 of the Thursday slate, number 1 seed North Carolina versus 4 seed Alabama. Going into this one, we said it was going to be a track meet, and it absolutely was, especially in the first half. North Carolina led by 8, 54-46. Bama came out strong to start the second half, cutting the lead to 3 with 15 minutes to go. UNC star big man Armando Bacot would pick up 3 quick fouls to start the half, sending him to the bench. Offensively, this second half was pretty ugly for the Tar Heels. They only scored 33 points. Bama would go up 5 with a Grant Nelson 3-point jumper, 82-77 with 3:46 to go. But after 6 straight RJ Davis points, including 4 free throws, UNC would take the lead 85-82 with 1:32 left. Mark Sears' layup cuts it to a 1-point game, and then Jalen Withers takes one of the worst 3-point attempts, one of the most unaware shots I've seen in a given situation all tournament. Bama comes down, Grant Nelson and 1 layup, foul on Jalen Withers. Bama's up 87-85. With their season on the line, RJ Davis, in my opinion, takes 2 terrible shots, getting blocked by Grant Nelson on the first one and badly missing the second one. Grant Nelson would then make both free throws, and Bama would win 89-87. North Dakota State transfer Grant Nelson would have his best game of the season, 24 points, 12 boards, 5 blocks, 10 for 13 from the free throw line, 6 for 9 from the field. And Alabama's scoring output was concentrated to just 4 players. Mark Sears had 18, Aaron Estrada had 19, and sophomore guard Rylan Griffin had 19 as well, which was massive for them. Nelson would have 17 points in that second half, including 7 straight points when it mattered the most. According to ESPN Stats and Info, Grant Nelson is the first player to have 20 points, 10 boards, and 4+ blocks in a Sweet 16 game or later since Kevin Love in 2008. I'm super happy for Grant. There was huge hopes for him him when he transferred from North Dakota State to Bama this offseason, and he's had a fine year, but it hasn't been anything crazy. So to have his best game of the year when it matters most, sending Alabama to their first Sweet 16 since 2004 and their second ever in school history, they have never made it to a Final Four. I have to say this, I apologize to every Alabama fan who's watched these videos. I have been a very outspoken non-believer in this Alabama team strictly due to their horrendous defense. They're ranked outside the top 100 on KenPom, and normally we just don't see teams with elite offenses and horrible defenses go far in March, but I gotta give this Alabama team props. Game 4, Illinois, Iowa State. I thought this was going to be the game of the day, and while it was still a fun one, I just felt like Illinois was in control of this game from start to finish. I said this in the preview video, but if Iowa State goes 5 minutes without scoring, this game is probably over. And what do the Cyclones do to start the game? They wait until the 6:26 mark to score their first points. Illinois gets out to an 11-2 lead, leading at halftime 36-26. Iowa State's leading scorer, Keyshawn Gilbert, would have 9 quick points to start the second half after being held scoreless in the first, cutting the Illini lead down to 4. Illinois would lengthen their lead once more, but the Cyclones would again cut the deficit to 2, 53-51, with 7 minutes to go. Iowa State had 2 different opportunities to take the lead. They would fail, and from then on, Illinois would continue to hold anywhere from a 3 to 6 point lead, defeating the Cyclones 72-69. Terrence Shannon Jr. was marvelous, scoring 29 points on 10 for 19 from the field. Coleman Hawkins had a great game, 12 points, and I felt like he was everywhere on the floor making plays. I have to shout out Curtis Jones for Iowa State, a guard off the bench. He gave it everything he could, scoring 26 points on 7 for 18 from the field and 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Honestly, almost everyone else on Iowa State disappointed me. Meanwhile, Illinois will try to do the impossible, defeat Connecticut in an Elite 8 matchup tomorrow night. I didn't feel like doing the stats myself, so I'll credit Rob Dowser from Field of 68 with this tweet. Here's Terrence Shannon's averages in his 6 postseason games, including the Big Ten tournament. He also joins Blake Griffin as the second player in the last 30 years to score 25 plus points on 50% from the field in each of his first 3 tourney games, while still bringing his team to the Elite 8. We shall see if him and Illinois can do the impossible versus UConn later tonight. Game 1 of the Friday slate, Marquette, a 2 seed versus NC State, an 11. I'll be honest, guys, I don't have much to say here because Marquette shot it so badly from 3. As a team, they went 4 for 31 from 3. That's 13%. Sam Federer went and tracked all 27 of Marquette's missed 3-pointers in this game. If you want to watch that thread, I linked it below on X. And Marquette missed a bunch of wide open 3s, guys. But at the end of the day, that takes nothing away from NC State because this is March Madness. And while I believe shooting luck is 100% real, especially from 3, you have to make shots if you want to win the game. NC State made shots, Marquette didn't. It's just that simple at the end of the day. NC State wins 67-58 in a game that really didn't ever feel like they weren't in control of it. Marquette would get it to as close as 6 with 3:39 to go, 58-52, but that was it. Tyler Kolek finishes a fantastic career. In my opinion, he's going to be a fantastic backup point guard in the NBA. He finishes with 17 points, 10 boards, only 3 assists, but let's be honest, he probably should have had 7 or 8. Kim Jones finishes with 20, 3 for 12 from 3. David Joplin, 0 for 7 from 3. Just absolutely brutal, man, but I'm happy for NC State, the Wolfpack. DJ Horn had 19 points, 5 boards on 6 for 15 from the field. DJ Burns only scored 4 points, but he also only took 4 shots, and they didn't really need him to score. He had 7 assists. His ability to pass from the post is next level. Orcel was fantastic with 15. Diarra had 11 and 15 boards. I love this North Carolina State team. They started this year 17-14 and have been 7-0 since in the ACC tournament and NCAA tournament. On Sunday, they'll have the opportunity to become just the 6th 11 seed of all time and the first since 2021 UCLA to make a Final Four, and the first one to ever advance to a national championship game. Game 2, number 1 seed Purdue versus 5 seed Gonzaga. The Zags made Purdue work in this one. It was a back and forth first half with Purdue leading 40-36 at the end. Gonzaga would cut it to 2, 53-51 on a Nolan Hickman 3 with 12:34 left, but the Boilermakers would go on a 16-2 run, leading 69-53 with 7:36 left. Gonzaga never really recovered from there there, but I was super impressed with Graham Ike in this game. We all knew Zach Edey was going to be a very tough matchup, and while Ike would foul out and so would Watson, in that first half, it looked like Gonzaga had a blueprint for beating Purdue. Ike would hit 2 threes, 18 points, 10 boards. Unfortunately, it's just too tough for Gonzaga when Purdue's shooting 57% from the field and 45% from 3. Edey finishes with 27 and 14, 7 of 10 from the free throw line. Braden Smith, 14 points, 15 assists, 8 boards, 2 boards away from being the 11th ever player to have a triple-double in the tournament. Purdue's in the Elite 8 for the 6th time ever in school history, the first since 2019 Carson Edwards' legendary run, with an opportunity to make the Final Four for the first time since 1980. I know there's this huge discourse with Zach Edey and foul calls. I just don't feel like getting into it in this video. Game 6 of the Sweet 16, third on Friday. Houston versus Duke, 1 seed versus 4 seed. My prediction was for Duke to win, and while they did win, I'm going to tell you why I'm not happy about it. Houston was winning 16-10 when Jamal Shed turned his ankle. I feel awful for Shed. He is one of the best players in this tournament, the leader of this Houston team. And while he tried to give it a go, he just couldn't. Duke ends up winning this one in a tight one, 54-51. Outside of Cryer and Roberts, Houston just could not score. This really felt like Emmanuel Sharp's opportunity, especially after having 30 versus A&M, to pick up in Shed's absence and will his team to a win. Unfortunately for Houston, they just came up a tad bit short. Sharp did miss a potentially game-tying 3. And the reason I say I'm not that excited about this win for Duke is I don't feel like they deserve to win. Obviously, there's nothing they can do about Shed getting hurt, but they just didn't really play that good of a game, and I was expecting a lot more from them. If Jamal Shed is on that court, I believe Houston wins by 12 to 14 points. But at the end of the day, this is March Madness. Duke has a chance to prove themselves in the Elite 8 on Sunday to me. In their matchup versus North Carolina State, I'm taking the Wolfpack in this one. Duke just doesn't have that toughness that Houston does, and even though I love Jeremy Roach's play as an experienced guard, I think NC State's a tougher team. I think NC State is going to dictate the game. Filipowski will not be able to handle DJ Burns on the defensive end. And bottom line, this seems to be a year of destiny for NC State. Meanwhile, Duke has beaten Vermont, a 13 seed, James Madison, a 12 seed, and now Houston without their best player. And now they face an 11 seed for a chance to go to the Final Four. I don't know, maybe I'm being too hard on Duke, but that was an ugly game, and I don't think they deserve to win it at all. We'll see if they prove me wrong in the Elite 8. Lastly, has any dominant team in recent years had as bad of injury luck in the NCAA tournament as the Houston Cougars? 2022, you have Marcus Sasser and Trayvon Mark missing the NCAA tournament. Last year, Shed and Sasser are injured throughout the tournament. And then Roberts was injured in the Big 12 tournament and is clearly playing through it, and they lose Shed in the first half of the Sweet 16. Game 8 of the Sweet 16 was probably my favorite of the Friday slate. 2 seed Tennessee versus 3 seed Creighton. This game was always going to come down to one question. Would Creighton's offense prevail, or would Tennessee's defense prevail? Creighton took a 1-point lead going into the first half, 35-34. Tennessee would then go on a 15-0 run, led almost entirely by Dalton Knecht, going from being down 39-37 with 19 minutes to go to being up 55-39 with 14 minutes to go. Dalton Knecht scored or assisted on 13 of those 15 points. Creighton would make a strong push, cutting the lead to 3 points, 62-59. Creighton would then go scoreless for 3 minutes from the 4-minute mark to about the minute mark, and that was about all she wrote. Tennessee would win 82-75. And oddly enough, while I give a ton of credit to Tennessee's defense, it was their offense that won this for them, scoring 48 points in the second half. Dalton Knecht would finish with 24, 6, and 5. He did struggle from the field, however, going 8 for 21. I thought Jonas 80 was going to be an X factor in this game, but he was bad. He only played 17 minutes. Tennessee needs him to figure it out in the Elite 8. Zakai Ziegler had 18, 6, and 4, and Josiah Jordan James had a massive 17 points on only 6 shots and going 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Trey Alexander had a rough game when it mattered most. He did have 13 points, but he went 3 for 12 from the field. Baylor Shireman did what he could to keep his team in this one. 25 points, 6 boards on 8 for 19 from the field. But Tennessee denies Creighton back-to-back Elite 8 appearances and gives them their first Elite 8 appearance since 2010 with Bruce Pearl at the helm. Tennessee has never made a Final Four. They'll face off against Purdue tomorrow in a game between two teams that have either never made it there in Tennessee or haven't been there in a long time in Purdue. I love Tennessee, I love Dalton Knecht, but I do not see them being able to defeat Purdue. Edey was bad against Kalkbrenner tonight. I cannot imagine what he will be against Edey. Dalton Knecht's going to do everything he can, and while I think Zakai Ziegler could do pretty well in his matchup versus Braden Smith, Braden is such a savvy player that I don't know if he'll be able to slow him down.
He's first-team All-American. He's a Big 12 Player of the Year, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He's the heart and soul of this team. I doubt any team in America has maybe Edey from Purdue that means as much to their team as Jamal would mean to this team. There's just not another Jamal.
I love these guys so much. They got everything they had.
We came in with Coach. We were his first couple recruits, first people that he's retained, first recruiting class that he brought in the sophomores. You know, another group of freshmen this year. It's a lot of. We built a lot at this school, and just to see it end now is tough.
Started with 68, and we are down to just 4. The Elite Eight has wrapped up this weekend with 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday. I'll admit I'm a little sad that this tournament is quickly coming to a close. However, we had some great basketball played this weekend, so let's just dive right in. Game 1, UConn versus Illinois. This is one of the weirdest college basketball games I've seen in a while. With 1 minute and 23 seconds left to go in the first half, Illinois was tied with UConn 23-23. Both teams were struggling from the field, but Illinois was fighting. And then from that point on until 12:39 to go in the second half, Illinois would not score a point. That included 17 straight shots missed and UConn going on a 30-0 run. I think the craziest part about this one is that moments before this run took place, Brad Underwood, Illinois' coach, was getting interviewed in one of those mid-game interviews CBS likes to do, stating they're going to keep going at 7'2" big man for UConn, Donovan Clingan, and then that 30-0 run happens. Speaking of Clingan, he finished with 22 points on 9 for 13 from the field, 10 boards, and 5 blocks. He will be a lottery pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Evan Maekawa has this thing called the kill shot that he talks about. It's where a team goes on a 10-0 run, and teams that accomplish kill shots win 81% of the time. Well, UConn's triple kill shot is the first in any D1 men's game in over 3 years, and for it to happen in the Elite Eight is pretty absurd. This makes back-to-back years where UConn has won by 25 plus points in the Elite Eight. Illinois shot 25% from the field. Terrence Shannon Jr., probably the best offensive player in the tournament up until this point, struggled going 2 for 12 from the field. But I think the craziest part about this game is that UConn went 3 for 17 from 3. That's 17.5%. Now, it's not necessarily uncommon in the NCAA tournament for a team to shoot less than 20% from 3 and win. Matter of fact, it happens multiple times every year. But I was curious how many teams in tournament history have won by 25 while shooting less than 20% from 3. So I put that into StatHead, and this became just the 10th game in tournament history, the first since 2012 that a team has won by 25 plus while shooting less than 20% from the 3-point line. 7 of these 10 games came in the round of 64, aka the first round, and were against double-digit seeds. I'm talking 14, 15, 16 seeds. There's really only one other game in NCAA history that compares to this, and it was Utah in 1998 when they defeated Arizona 76-51 in the Elite Eight. They went 2 for 10 from 3. This really is such an impressive win for UConn. They shot 28 for 43 from 2. And at this point, they're really giving me Kentucky 2015 vibes, where we just thought this team was unbeatable. But we all know what happened to Kentucky in the Final Four, which we'll get to later in this video. Per KenPom, UConn now has a plus 35.10 adjusted efficiency margin, which is one of the best efficiency margins of the last 25 years. With only 2021 Gonzaga, 2015 Kentucky, 2008 Kansas, 2001 Duke, and 1999 Duke being better. At this point, my only question I have for UConn is who is going to give this team a competitive game? Game 2 of the Elite Eight and the final game of the Saturday night slate, 4 seed Alabama versus 6 seed Clemson. Alabama is looking to make their first Final Four in program history, and meanwhile, Clemson is looking to make their first Final Four since 1980. Bama's big man, Grant Nelson, would pick up 2 quick fouls in this one, sending him to the bench early. And it was all Clemson early on, leading 26-13. The Tigers were dictating the flow like they usually do. It was a slower paced game. They weren't allowing Bama to get in transition much. Bama was also missing quite a few shots, going 1 for 13 through the first 14 minutes of the first half from 3, continuing the trend of Clemson opponents continuing to shoot poorly from 3 throughout this tournament. But after Jack Clark's 3 put Clemson up 26-13 with 7:56 to go in the half, Bama would go on a 16-2 run, finishing the half up 35-32 and going 5 for 7 from 3 in those 6 minutes. This was just the second time this tournament I've seen Clemson give up the pace of play and lose control of a game, with the other time being Baylor making a comeback late in their second round matchup. Unfortunately for Clemson, the second half turned into a track meet. 104 points were scored total. Bama would win this one 89-82, and it was back and forth for most of the half, but Bama just did not miss, especially from 3. They were playing the style that they love to play, and it worked out for them. I think a great microcosm for how this half went was around the 7:47 minute mark when Joe Girard hit a 3, cutting Clemson's deficit to 3, 59-56. Within 10 seconds of that made 3, Rylan Griffin makes a 3 of his own, putting that lead back to 6. And then Girard hits another 3 for Clemson, putting it back to 3. And again, just 14 seconds later, Jaron Stevenson hits a 3. That has to be so demoralizing for a Clemson team, but this is what Bama loves to do to opponents. Jack Clark would make a layup, cutting the lead to 4 with 1:40 left, and Mark Sears hits this absolute dagger 3 with the shot clock counting down, giving Alabama a 7-point lead and securing their first ever Final Four appearance in school history, which is crazy to think about. Alabama shot the heck out of it from 3, and if you remember earlier, I said they started 1 for 13 from 3 and then went 5 for 7 to finish the half. Well, in the second half, they went 10 for 15, and if you're Clemson, you just can't be mad about that. Opponents were shooting awful from 3 in the tournament versus you. At some point, you're gonna run into a team on a hot night. You have to figure out how to limit it. But I'm so impressed with Bama's speed. Obviously, this is their MO. This is how they've gotten here. But it's one thing to see it in a regular season game. It's another thing to see it in the Elite 8. And they just let Clemson play right into their hands. For all my Bama fans out there that have watched me these past couple of videos, I apologize for doubting them. They are the real deal. I just never believed in that defense being outside the top 100 in KenPom. And speaking of defensive efficiency, it got me wondering, when was the last time a team with a defensive efficiency outside of the top 100 made the Final Four? So I did some digging on KenPom, and he has data going back to 1998. It's only happened 2 other times in 26 years. Last season, 2023, Miami, Florida, who, if you remember correctly, they were dead in the water versus Drake with only a couple minutes to go before Drake completely folded. And Dwayne Wade's number 3 seed Marquette in 2003. This is no diss on Bama, by the way. I'm giving them their props. They've actually played good defense in this tournament for the most part, and they've let their offense just supercharge everything. Game 3 of the Elite 8, our first game on Easter Sunday, number 1 seed Purdue versus 2 seed Tennessee. This game had some awesome storylines as well. Purdue has not made the Final Four since 1980. Ironically, that 1980 Purdue team was also led by a dominant scoring big man in Joe Barry Carroll, who ended up being the first overall pick in the 1980 NBA draft. And then you have Tennessee, who is in their second ever Elite 8 appearance, first since 2010, looking for their first ever Final Four appearance. The player of the year in Zach Edey versus the presumed runner-up player of the year in Dalton Knecht. And I'll tell you what, these two did not disappoint. Knecht finished with 37 points and Edey had a career high 40. Both of them scored more than the rest of their team. This game was tight right up until about the 3-minute mark when Purdue slowly just pulled away by a couple possessions. Purdue would win 72-66, and like I said, Dalton Knecht literally did everything he could for this Tennessee team, but he got absolutely zero help on offense. Zakai Ziegler, their point guard, shot 3 for 12 from the field, including 1 for 8 from 3. And sure, you could say Dalton Knecht took a ton of shots. He only went 14 for 31 from the field, but he had to. Nobody else on that team can score. I'm sorry. Also, Tennessee fans, you gotta help me with this one. What is wrong with Jonas Aidoo? He played 10 minutes, over 4 from the field, had 3 fouls, could not defend, and just like the Sweet 16, he barely played. This was the lowest minutes he's played on the season, even including blowouts. And sure, you could say it's the Zach Edey effect, fine. But he was awful against Creighton and only played 17 minutes as well, including being benched down the stretch in crunch time. I don't know, guys. I really like Jonas Aidoo coming into this tournament. I'm not sure what happened. Dalton Knecht has a bright future in the NBA. I'm excited to see him at the next level. But honestly, he deserved better in this effort around him on the offensive end. Like I said earlier, Edey finished with a career high 40 points on 13 from 21 from the field, including 14 for 22 from the free throw line. I'll look up some more research in my Final Four preview video, but I'm pretty sure if he makes the national title, he has the chance at breaking the all-time NCAA Division I free throw attempt record in a season. He also had 16 boards. Fletcher Lawyer was the only other Purdue Boilermaker in double figures in this game, and they shot an uncharacteristic 3 for 15 from 3, which is crazy because Purdue is second in the nation in three-point percentage at 40.6. I heard them say on the broadcast this is the first 1-2 matchup in the Elite Eight in 5 years. I find that very hard to be true, so let's fact check it really quick. All right, the broadcast was right. It was 2019 Duke, Zion Williamson's team playing number 2 seed Michigan State. What's crazy is before the 2020 tournament was canceled due to COVID, this was a regular occurrence. I mean, look at this. It's happened almost every year dating back to 2000 besides what? 2011? And then 2021, 2022, 2023, it doesn't happen. Anyways, again, the story with Edey as always is these fouls and whatever. I just don't care enough to talk about that. Game 4, number 4 seed Duke versus 11 seed NC State. I got a lot of people upset with my Duke take last video that I know did not watch my Sweet 16 preview because you would have heard how much I was glazing Duke. I'm always willing to admit when I'm wrong, but honestly, I think I was right on this one. NC State takes down Duke, making the Wolfpack the 6th 11 seed all time to make a Final Four, the first since Johnny Juzang carried UCLA in 2021. And I'm going to toot my own horn. I picked NC State, and yes, I'm proud of it. Not as much as my Clemson over Arizona in the Sweet 16, but nonetheless, let's get to this game. DJ Burns and DJ Horn, NC State's 2 star players, absolutely balled out. Big boy DJ Burns finished with 29 points on 13 for 19 from the field. Again, I said this in the Sweet 16. I did not think Filipowski could guard him, and he could not. Flip fouled out with a couple minutes left, finishing with 11 points on 3 for 12 from the field. And then point guard DJ Horn finished with 20. And they didn't really need much else. I mean, the role players for NC State were great as always. Diarra did not play as much as he usually does, but their backup Middlebrooks was great in this game. And then Marcel and O'Connell just did what they needed to do for the most part. But the craziest thing about this game is that NC State shot it awfully in the first half. They only scored 21 points. Thankfully, Duke only scored 27. And then the Wolfpack would go on to put up 55 points in the second half. They still didn't shoot it well from 3, but it did not matter. They beat Duke. Props to Jared McCain. He's my guy. Freshman for Duke. He's going to be a good player in the NBA. Scored 32 points on 8 for 20, 5 for 11 from 3, 11 for 11 from the free throw line. Jeremy Roach was the only other guy, in my opinion, that was decent. He did go 5 for 13 from the field, but he scored 13 points. I mentioned Filipowski already, but Tyrese Proctor had an awful game, going 0 for 9 from the field, putting up 0 points, and Duke got 2 points from their bench. They shot just 32.2% from the field, 25% from 3. This and one from DJ Burns late was absolutely hype. He was just making plays all second half, to be honest. If you don't know, they finished the regular season 17-14 and went 2-7 in their final 9 games, then won 5 games in 5 days to win the ACC tournament, getting them into the tournament. They never would have been in it otherwise. And now here they are winning 4 straight games in March Madness, going to the Final Four. They'll face Purdue. We'll talk about that matchup in the Final Four preview, but this is just the 3rd time NC State has made it to the Final Four, with the other 2 appearances resulting in national titles, including the 1983 Jimmy V team that defeated Goliath in Houston, by Slamma-Jamma with Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon. It's highly unlikely, but if the Wolfpack can, number one, upset Purdue and Zach Edey in the Final Four and then UConn, it would easily be the best Cinderella story ever. An 11 seed has never made the national title. It's never won a national title, obviously. The highest seed to win one is an 8 seed, 1985 Villanova. And then to knock off the National Player of the Year in Zach Edey in the Final Four and a historically great UConn team that is on a double-digit streak dating back to last year trying to defend a title. I don't know, guys. I think I'm all on the NC State bandwagon. Let's see if they can do it.
Be your pitch to anybody that's interested in coming to play for Clemson.
Do it. I mean, this place has been unbelievable, and it all goes back to the culture, really. And that's what was attractive to me. The people at Clemson are great. I think I've said that like the first week I got there. There was cookies at my apartment door from some random person that I still don't even know who it was to this day. Anyone looking forward to living in a great place, playing with great people, playing for great people, and doing great things should go to Clemson.
On top of that, it hurts even more, like Coach said, you're not going to be with the same team next year, especially for older guys like me and Chase and Joe. It's such a fun group, man, from top to bottom, from red shirts to fifth-year seniors. I mean, it was an incredible group, and there's nothing I'd change about it.
For Coach to believe in me, for my teammates to believe in me, especially in the beginning of the year when I felt like, I couldn't get things going as a freshman. They instilled confidence in me, especially him right here.
Any other questions for our student athletes?
Hard to put into words like the pain that I feel right now, but it's even harder to put into words like the joy and the happiness I've gotten from being around this team, this university for the past 5 years. Like, these guys mean so much to me, and I can't really describe it, but I love them. I love them so much.
Let's start with the first game of the day. 1 seed Purdue versus 11 seed, the darling of the tournament, the NC State Wolfpack. NC State started off slow. They would get down 12-4 to open the game, but they would show the resilience they have all tournament and battle back to a 6-point deficit at half. They'd actually gotten it to 3 with a DJ Horn jumper, but then they gave up this Fletcher Lawyer 3 that I thought was an absolute momentum killer, and that's just what happens when you don't have an answer for Zach Edey. You need to double in the post, and Edey has a bunch of 40% three-point shooters he can kick it out to. Then in the second half, while Purdue struggled from the field as well, NC State would score just 4 points through the first 7 minutes, going just 1 for 10 in that stretch. And although they were only down 9 still, they'd get it to as close as 7. They just didn't have enough offensive firepower in this game to make it really that close in the second half. Purdue would win by 13, making their first ever national championship in school history. I said before this game that in order for NC State to win, DJ Horn would have to go off for 25. He did his absolute best. He scored 20. He only shot 8 for 21 from the field, but honestly, he was the only player on this team that could create his own shot. I don't think DJ Burns was as bad as the box score suggested. He had 8 points, went 4 for 10 from the field, had 4 assists, but only 1 board. He did get in foul trouble, which limited some minutes, but they really need a better game from Casey Morsell. He went 0 for 5 from the field, finished with 0 points in 31 minutes. As a team that would go 5 for 19 from 3, which when you shoot 26% versus one of the best teams in the nation from beyond the arc, you're probably not going to win. But honestly, that was not the main problem for NC State. They only shot 3 for 13 from the field versus Duke and still scored 76. They went 3 for 17 from the field in the ACC semis versus Virginia and still won that game, scoring 73. The problem was that they only got to the free throw line 4 times. Versus Duke, they got there 23, making 17. Marquette was an ugly game. They only got there 12 times, but Marquette also shot 4 for 31 from 3. And then versus Oakland, 12 for 16 from the free throw line. Versus Texas Tech, 21 for 26. UNC in the ACC title game, 22 for 29. But it gets worse than just the raw numbers. Their free throw rate was 7.0, which is by far the worst in their 9-game win streak since the ACC conference tournament, with their lowest rate before being the Marquette game at 21.4. If you're not going to shoot it well from 3, and you're not going to get to the free throw line, you're not going to win many games. It's a big time bummer that Michael O'Connell went down with an injury, and offensively, we knew this was always going to be such a hard matchup for DJ Burns. He's a post player. He had a couple plays too, a couple hook shots early in this one. I was so impressed with. They were 10 to 12 feet away over Zach Edey. Just incredibly difficult shots that he did have go down. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do against a 7'4", 300-pound monster when you're 6'9" and your main offense is in the post? I thought DJ Burns held his own versus Zach Edey for the most part. There were numerous times where he walled Edey up, would not let him get closer to the basket when backing him down, but Edey still just rose over him from 8 to 9 feet away and would just make those hook shots, which there's nothing you can do at that point. NC State did try to double quite a bit, and the problem with doubling Edey is that he has a bunch of 40% three-point shooters that will just knock down threes, which is exactly what happened at the end of the first half. At the end of the day, the pick I had for NC State was absolutely an emotional one. I mentioned that in the video. Purdue is a freaking good basketball team, and I'm excited to talk about their chances in the national title game at the end of this video. One last thing about this game, I don't even think Purdue played that well. They shot 40% from the field, had 16 turnovers. Braden Smith shot 1 for 9 from the field. However, we have to talk about the fact that Zach Edey played every minute of this game. He played 40 minutes at 300 pounds. And this isn't just one game. In the Sweet 16, he played 38 minutes versus Gonzaga, Tennessee 39. That is utterly impressive for a guy of his size, and such an advantage for Matt Painter to not have to get him multiple rests throughout the game. Our second game of the night, UConn versus Alabama. This game was definitely a lot more fun than the first one, and honestly, it also was just a better game in general. It had more competition in it. Alabama definitely held their own in the first half. They shot an incredible 7 for 10 from 3, but still found themselves down 44 to 40 at the end of the half. They would cool off in the second half, only going 4 for 13, but at the same time, they still shot 48% from 3. Problem is, UConn was hitting their threes for once. They went 10 for 25, and we all know UConn is just such a versatile team. I love this thread from Ryan Cassidy. He pointed out that the game plan from Bama early on was to make Stephon Castle, the freshman, beat you. And that's exactly what Castle did. He tied his season high at 21 points on an efficient 7 for 13 from the field. Per StatHead, Castle became just the 8th freshman ever in Final Four history to score 20 plus points. And if you look at the names on this list, he's in some pretty good company. And unfortunately for Bama, they just got ran down in the second half, would lose 86 to 72, keeping UConn's 13 plus margin of victory win streak alive dating back to the 2023 tournament. I do have to give Mark Sears his flowers. He went out balling, had 24 points on 9 for 14 from the field. The thing that impressed me the most about Sears was that he was able to get to the rim even with Clingan around it and still lay it in. He's just so crafty, and he doesn't waste a step. Bama plays at one of the fastest tempos in the country, ranking 14th in adjusted tempo, but UConn dictated the pace of this game, holding Alabama to their lowest adjusted tempo of the season at 63. Matter of fact, Alabama had 0 fast break points in the entire game. I truly thought Wrightsville would be more of an X factor in this one, but he only went 2 of 5 from the field, scoring 6 points. Grant Nelson had another good game, 19 points, 15 boards, but he's just too small on the other end for Clingan. Meanwhile, on the UConn side, Cam Spencer had 14, Tristan Newton 12 and 9, Caravan 14, Donovan Clingan had 18, 5 and 4 blocks. And both teams only had one player off the bench score. This was a little bit of an anticlimactic Final Four, but I'll tell you why that is okay. Because it gives us the best possible scenario for a national championship. Both Purdue and UConn have been top 3 in KenPom all season long, above that elite plus 30 adjusted efficiency margin alongside Houston. But here's the thing, Purdue matches up so much better with UConn than Houston does. They're gonna give up athleticism on the wing, but they have one of the best 3-point shooting percentages in the country, and they have the National Player of the Year, one of the only players that I think could potentially handle Donovan Clingan. I'll be super interested to see how UConn plays Edey. Will they play him straight up with Clingan? Will they try to use their athleticism to double him and get back out to those 3-point shooters when he kicks it out? This is just the 5th ever all-time number 1 versus number 2 KenPom matchup in national championship history. with the last one taking place in 2021, which was an anticlimactic title game as well. Baylor blew out Gonzaga. But if you take a look at 2016, 2008, and 2005, you have Villanova versus North Carolina, arguably the best national title game of all time. You have 2008 Kansas versus Memphis, another incredible game that went to overtime. And then 2005 North Carolina versus Illinois, another incredible national championship. As much as I want to see upsets, this is going to be such a fun national title game.
Look at me, I'm 6'1", man. I ain't got the potential like I did in high school and all these young guys in high school, but you know, hard work is always undefeated. Man, I live for those moments, man. You know, this is what March Madness is about, you know. When you're a kid, you want to be in these moments, and it felt like my dream came true today. My dream definitely came true today.
The first team in program history to get here, you know, it's everything I could ask for.
I thank our guys for getting this school to a Final Four for the first time in school history. We had an unbelievable run, and these guys kind of got us over the hump to get there.
Great one, whole career, looking over it, you know, it's been a long journey. I'm grateful for everything that, you know, has been thrown my way, and, you know, to end it with this magical run that I, you know, went on with me and my teammates, and to have an ACC championship, you know, didn't get the big one, but, you know, it's definitely a big accomplishment.
Man, just to be a part of this has been everything I could have asked for, man. Didn't go the way we wanted to go out, but, man, this has been an experience like no other. It's something, you know, that I've wanted my whole life, and to be able to do it with the group of people that we have is just amazing, man. And the city, we're just glad we could bring the culture back to Raleigh and bring it back for state fans, man. They've been waiting for a long time, and I hope we give them something to, you know, build up for next year.
The 2024 National Championship had some incredible storylines going into it. Will UConn repeat as back-to-back champions for the first time since the Florida Gators in 2007 and continue their dominant streak of 13-plus point victories? Or would Purdue have the ultimate redemption, winning a national title just like Virginia did after losing to a 16 seed the year before? This game was going to be a good one, and the first half lived up to the hype. Zach Edey started off the game 5-4-7, 11 points and 2 blocks. Purdue and UConn were tied at 18 with 11 minutes to go in the first quarter. This game was back and forth, and it looked like UConn was finally meeting their match for the first time in 2 years. The Huskies would finish the half up 6, 36-30, and although the Boilermakers had a good half, Edey looked like he was getting tired. This man played 40 minutes in the Final Four, 39 in the Elite Eight, 38 in the Sweet 16. For the first portion of the first half, it did seem like Edey was going to dominate Klingon, but Klingon bounced back pretty well and was starting to force Edey to miss shots. Heading into the second half, if Purdue wanted a chance to hang with UConn, their supporting staff, not named Braden Smith, would need to score the basketball. Edey would start off the second half 0 for 3 from the field. UConn would jump out to a 9-point lead, and this is where the game got away for Purdue and UConn showed their utter dominance. A Stephon Castle 3 with 8:41 to go would put the lead to 17 points. This second half was not competitive. UConn wins back-to-back titles in dominant fashion for the first time since 2007, holding the second best offense in the nation to just 60 points. The most impressive thing to me about this game was the scout and the game plan that UConn implemented. Basically what they said, and Dan Hurley said this after the game, was they're going to let Zach Edey eat, but they're not going to let Purdue's three-point shooting beat them. The game plan was no Smith, no Lawyer, no Gillis, no Jones. Keep that collective under 20 points as a group, and they had zero chance to win no matter what Edey did. And that is precisely what UConn did. Braden Smith finished with 12 points, Fletcher Lawyer 0 on 0 for 5 from the field, Lance Jones 5, Gillis had 0. Meanwhile, Zach Edey had 37 on 15 for 25 from the field. This was an absolute brilliant game plan, and as you can see, Klingon did such a good job on Edey, especially after that first stretch in the first half, to where UConn did not have to help. They were able to play him one-on-one in the post and smother Purdue's shooters on the perimeter. Purdue made just 1 3 and only took 7. You have absolutely zero chance of winning a game with those 3-point numbers, especially in 2024. According to Ken Pomeroy, Purdue's 7 3-point attempts appear to be the fewest in a title game since 1995. Just an absolute defensive masterclass from probably the greatest college basketball team of the last 25 years. Tristan Newton wins Most Outstanding Player, finishing with 20 points, 7 assists, 5 boards, and 0 turnovers. Castle had 15, Klingon had 11 and 5. Cam Spencer had 11 and 8. I love Tristan Newton's story. He played for some bad East Carolina teams early in his career, transfers to UConn, becomes an integral part of the 2023 national championship team, steps up even more, and is arguably the best player on one of, if not the greatest, college basketball teams in our recent memory. What a way to go out for the 5th-year senior. UConn finished 12-0 versus the spread in these past 2 NCAA tournaments, which is absolutely insane. I mean, I really don't know what else to say. This team is unbelievable. They'll finish with the best point differential ever in NCAA history at plus 140. Their average margin of victory is the best in tournament history as well since 1979 at 23.3 points per game. I don't think we will ever see what we've seen these past 2 years in March Madness the rest of our lifetimes. This was a rare run from the UConn Huskies. They deserve all of the props, and it makes you wonder just how good the Big East really was when you have Seton Hall, who beat UConn in the regular season and ripped through the NIT. It was an incredible career for Zach Edey. I think he's going to be a good pro, but let's be honest, outside of Braden Smith, who still shot 4 for 12 from the field, he really didn't have any help.
I think for me, the big thing is you can say whatever you want about me. You can say however I play. You can say whatever, but you can never say that I didn't give it my 100% every single time I stepped on the floor, every single time I went in practice, and that's what I always hang my hat on. I came in and I never didn't give it 100%.
Oh yeah, and here's Dan Hurley calling a shot when he got the UConn job in 2020.
We're going to continue to recruit and develop and bring in the type of players that will bring UConn back. People better get us now. That's all. You better get us now because it's coming.
Yeah, what could you say? We won. Play a lot again.
All year we set out to make this a goal and go back-to-back, and, that's what we did tonight.
The chance to win like a state championship or any big championship, so just to do it, one and done, first year, just to do it, it was super fun.
Here without you guys, and to accomplish a championship with your brothers that you go to war with is really special. I'll be a Husky for life, and just want to say thank you from all of us.
Say back-to-back, let's go.
In back-to-back, that's the standard now. Winning those banners now, that's all we got to do. So.
And that wraps up our 2024 NCAA tournament in review. I hope you enjoyed this video. We took together all of my real-time recaps from this season and added some player sound bites at the end of each round. Whether you're watching this video just after the tournament ended or 10 years from now, I hope this helped you remember this tournament. Although it wasn't the craziest tournament when it came to close games, Stats by Will on Twitter had a great tweet on how this was the second highest scoring margin in NCAA tournament history at plus 14.4 points per game. It was still a tournament that will go down in history due to UConn's historical greatness, Zach Edey's individual accolades, NC State's unsuspecting Final Four run, and Jack Golke's unforgettable first-round performance. Thanks for watching. If you're somehow still here, consider joining my Discord server. We talk basketball 24/7, do monthly giveaways, and stream exclusively in there live watch parties of games. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see ya on the hardwood.